welcome. My name's Phyllis. I'm a software developer at ThoughtWorks with a focus on infrastructure development. I'm interested about exploring topics related to security and privacy, and also about exploring abandoned houses, which there are a lot of in Berlin. This is Christine.
Yes, hi, my name is Christine. I'm also a software developer at ThoughtWorks. I have been with ThoughtWorks for 2 years. I'm very passionate about building the bridge between product and tech, and I haven't visited any abandoned places yet in Berlin, so I guess I should definitely do that at one point. Today we're going to talk about mTOMADY, and we're specifically going to talk about an approach that we took in order to bring our web app to rural Madagascar, so to more disconnected areas, and how we build a real offline first web app, basically.
So first, some context. mTOMADY is a project run by the NGO Doctors for Madagascar with the aim to bring healthcare to everyone, everywhere. So today, around 1 billion people around the world lack access to essential healthcare services. And this is a particularly large issue in sub-Saharan Africa. In Madagascar, for instance, only 7 people have health insurance. So Madagascar is where our project is based. And a lot of times, of course, people cannot afford health insurance, but there's also other issues related to people not having access to health insurance. So in Madagascar, affordable health insurances are generally pen and paper based, and their offices are in somewhat bigger towns. So if you go to the doctor and you get a treatment, you first have to pay upfront for the treatment, and then you have to travel to this town. Also, you have to keep in mind that the road infrastructure is pretty bad to actually get reimbursed for the money. So strangely, like, you can only have health insurance if you can also afford the treatment without health insurance, at least at first. And another issue for people is that prices aren't fixed. So potentially different patients would be paying very different prices for the same treatment. So you can't really plan your treatments ahead or your spendings. And if you have health insurance, you don't even know if they're going to cover it all. And at mTOMADY, we're building software that addresses some of these issues. The mission is to build technology that helps people to access essential healthcare services. And the idea is basically described in this triangle. So in our system, we have payers or health insurance providers that provide a cost reduction to beneficiaries. Beneficiaries, after receiving a treatment at a healthcare provider, can trigger a secure payment over their phone. And also to which also there's a cost reduction applying to through their the coverage of the payer. Additionally, the payer and the healthcare provider negotiate prices in advance, so the beneficiary also knows what they're actually paying for. The advantage for the payer is that since the activities of the healthcare provider are recorded in our system, the payer sees a traceable impact and also knows what they're paying for. The system also works quite well for allocation of funding, because if, for instance, there is an NGO that provides money for a particular treatment, it is traceable that this money is actually being spent on real people and real treatments through our system. Yeah. As you may have noticed before, both Christine and me are from ThoughtWorks, not from mTOMADY. And the reason for that is that mTOMADY and ThoughtWorks have a partnership that was kicked off in 2018, and that finally led to the finalization and the release of the first MVP in 2018. And we've been working very closely together ever since to also realize mTOMADY's vision and provide access to healthcare to more people. Before we start, we would like to explain what it means to build a digital product for Madagascar, or give some insights in what it means, because things are very different. Like usually a lot of times we're building products for people that are very similar to us, people that also live in Germany, and the context is quite different in Madagascar. One limitation for us was that many people don't have smartphones, and some also don't have mobile phones. Generally, what we've noticed though is that most people can access a feature phone somewhere in their network. So maybe they don't have a phone themselves, but their parent or someone in their community has a phone that they can use when they need it. In relation to the limited access to technology, people are also not digital natives. So there has to be a very strong focus on usability. Not everything that is clear to us about how an application works, where the send button is, for instance, is something that they've already learned through using a lot of applications. In order to make the application accessible to people, it's also really important to have people on the ground that are there training people and showing them how to use an application effectively, our application effectively. A problem when can maybe someone mute themselves? Okay. A problem for us when building an application was that there are a lot of areas that actually don't have internet, so it's a bit difficult to build a web app. And in some areas you don't even have phone coverage. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to explain now a little bit more how mTOMADY actually looks like. So how does it look like? How does it work? Yeah. So first of all, mTOMADY is currently partnering with over 35 hospitals in the capital of Madagascar, which is Antananarivo. And currently the program that is supported by the mTOMADY platform is the maternal health program by Doctors for Madagascar. So as Phyllis already mentioned in the beginning, we have those payers in our system. In this case, this is Doctors for Madagascar. And the program is the maternal health program, which aims at providing essential health care for pregnant women in order to give them a healthy pregnancy and help them to have their baby delivered in a hospital in the end. And what so this was also the focus group that we started with. Like this program and the first MVP was targeted at pregnant women. What they get from mTOMADY, so the user's perspective, is they have basically a digital health wallet where they can save money, or they can also receive vouchers that they can then use for their treatments. So here you can see a little illustration of, in this case, it's the sign-up process. On the left side, you can see a woman wearing an mTOMADY t-shirt. That's a so-called setup agent. They will go out, they are from mTOMADY, they will go out into the communities or just basically reach out to pregnant women and tell them about mTOMADY and how they can use it and what benefits it gives. They also set up or help with the whole setup flow, help them to sign up with mTOMADY, explain everything, so that right afterwards they can start using mTOMADY right away. Also, interesting side note, those illustrations, there are a few more in the next slides, they are used on the ground as well to explain mTOMADY to people, because there's also a lot of people who can't read and write necessarily, especially then also in the south. So yeah, there's little booklets in hospitals, or when the setup agents travel, they have them with them and show those illustrations to explain how it works to the people. Here you can see an illustration of a treatment. In this case, it's an ultrasound. So ultrasound is also a voucher that the people get from Doctors for Madagascar, from the maternal health program. Every woman who signs up, they get vouchers for free ultrasounds. Another side note here as well, Doctors for Madagascar also has mobile ultrasound stations, so that the women not even necessarily have to travel somewhere to get their ultrasound, but they basically drive around into the communities with the mobile ultrasound stations to then ensure that the women get the ultrasound and ensure that the baby is healthy. The next step after the woman got her treatment, in this case the ultrasound, they will go to the cashier in order to pay for their treatment. So you can see behind the counter the woman working here in this pharmacy or in this hospital. She's holding a little tablet that's supposed to be a tablet, which runs an Android kiosk app that runs the mTOMADY web application in it. And they will, from this app, they will start the claim filing process. So yeah, typing in all the data that is necessary. You can see that here in a little bit more detail. So first of all, what the cashier has to do is find the beneficiary by their phone number in order to retrieve data, for example, about how much money is on their wallet or which vouchers are they allowed to use. So then in the second step that you can see here on the right side, you can see that they can select the vouchers that are available for this beneficiary. On the bottom, you can see a field where they have to type in the full amount of the whole treatment. And next to it, you can see what the beneficiary has to pay. And if it's, for example, all covered by vouchers, it would obviously show 0 and the beneficiary doesn't have to pay anything. And you see a field, or you see 3 picture icons on the upper right corner. This is where they have to upload proofs. So in this whole claim filing process, we also involved that they need to upload pictures of, for example, invoices or details of the treatment in order to prevent fraud. So there's a whole back office process behind that where people actually check each and every claim in order to prevent fraud cases. And one step that you don't see here, that we haven't illustrated, is just is basically the third step where the cashier has to enter a 10 that the beneficiary get on their phone in order to approve the payment, because it could be that not everything is covered by vouchers, so that the beneficiary has to pay a part of the amount from their digital wallet. And in order to secure that, they have to enter a 10 that the beneficiary get on their phone to approve this payment.
So on the previous slides, you may have noticed, like in the images that are describing the flow, that the phone that is depicted there is a pretty old phone, kind of like the Nokia that you see here. And as we mentioned before, the reason for this is that there's very few households who have access to a smartphone, but in general, feature phones can be accessed. So if we would build an application for smartphones, not a lot of people would be able to use it, and especially not the people that we want to reach. Yeah, if like me, you haven't used a Nokia or a phone like that in a while, and maybe you forgot how to use T9 for text messaging, then you could ask yourself, how does one actually build an application for non-smartphones? And yeah, this slide kind of just shows a little what things you can do with a non-smartphone. So if you send bear to 6555 something, then you will receive this bear on your phone, or you can send a text to get a screensaver on your phone. And one thing that I also used to use myself when I was putting data on my prepaid SIM card was that you would type like a short code, maybe *945# like here, and then a USSD menu would open. And that's just a very basic menu that works on every phone that you can interact with to maybe use banking or to put money on your SIM card. Yeah, and that is also what we built for our beneficiaries. You can see it in the next slide. So just for context, USSD is a communications protocol for GSM, for global system for mobile communications. And like in more simple terms, USSD is very similar to text messaging. It is limited to around 160 characters. And yeah, the communication travels similarly to text messages, which is why you don't need internet for it. And this is our USSD menu for the beneficiaries. In order to access a USSD menu, you need a short code for mTOMADY that is *579#. And if a beneficiary types this on their phone, then they will see this menu that says sign up if you haven't signed up yet. If you have signed up already, this would be the place where you can see your balance, you can see which vouchers you can use, and these sorts of things. So you can see that for our beneficiaries, we've already implemented a flow that works without internet. But something that that came to our mind when we wanted to spread our, to widen the impact and to go to more disconnected areas in Madagascar is how can we also make the functionalities of the claim filing flow, for instance, available offline. So before Christine was explaining how the claim flow works to you, and you, like with the tablet, you always still needed internet connection in order to file a claim, to retrieve data from our backend. And as we were planning to go south, we had to think about how can we bring our application offline as well, the application that healthcare providers are using. And there's a couple of challenges we found with that. So one of them is that when a beneficiary goes to a healthcare provider in order to file a claim, how can the hospital know how much money the beneficiary has? And how do they know which vouchers the beneficiary can actually use? Now, in the scenario that a claim has already been filed offline, again, how do we know what the reduced balance of the beneficiary is or which vouchers have already been used? And in relation to that, we were thinking about what infrastructure is available on the ground. And the idea that we came up with was to also use USSD for API calls. I drew a little picture here. To make this a bit more understandable. So here on the very left, one of the workers at a hospital is using our kiosk app on a tablet. And if she's filing a claim and our JavaScript front end detects that there is no internet connection, the JavaScript front end will encode the API request into a USSD request. The reason why we need to encode this is, as I mentioned before, a USSD request can only have around 160 characters. So we need to make everything like very concise. And then the front end uses a USSD interface that is made available to the front end by our Android app to then use the mobile network of the tablet to send a USSD API request to the telecom provider. Then the telecom provider will forward this request to us. In our backend, we are decoding it. We formulate a response, and then we encode this response and send it back to the telecom provider. The telecom provider now sends it back over mobile network to our tablet, and the tablet propagates an event with this information to our front end. And now we have, once we decode this USSD response in the front end, we have information from our back end without having used the internet. Maybe that's a lot. So we also like to understand. So we are actually also going to give an example in a second of how such a USSD request works and looks like. One point that you could raise, just looking at this graph maybe, is that if we're sending sensitive patient data via USSD, potentially, like, just some person could take their phone and put in our shortcode, then put in whatever our request is, and we would just return sensitive patient information to anyone. No. So we developed a system for that, where with our partners at the hospitals, we are registering their SIM cards. So we will only, our backend will only accept a USSD API request if it comes from a registered SIM card that belongs to one of our partners. Yeah, and now on to our USSD example. This is an example of what a USSD request looks like. In the beginning, you again have the 579. That's the shortcode that's identified with mTOMADY. To know, so that the telecom provider knows that they are going to send this request to us. The second part, 2.1, that identifies the API endpoint. So the 2.1 means this is a get patient request. And then the third parameter, that is the phone number of the patient or beneficiary that we want to retrieve information about. Our backend will then return this response to the telecom provider, who will return it to the application. And the first number is the 200 is a status code. So everything went through fine, and we were able to get a response. The second part, the 2000, that's the wallet balance of the beneficiary. So now we know how much money they can actually spend. And all the numbers after that, so in this case 1 and 5, those are voucher IDs. So we also know which vouchers are available to the beneficiaries. So yeah, so this kind of helped that was the solution to the first part of our problem, to know how much money is on a beneficiary wallet. And also we know the voucher IDs now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but you can imagine that knowing the voucher IDs is maybe not enough. We don't just want to show 1 and 5 on the front end side on the tablet. That would be hard to choose from, right? So as we are limited and we only can send this 1 or 5 over the USSD API call, the front end needs to know upfront what 1 and 5 means. That maybe 1 is the ultrasound voucher and 2 is a voucher for a certain medicine, for example. So in the end, our whole app can not totally live without internet. I think then we would be back with pen and paper. So in the beginning, you would need to also, in order to log into our app, it would need an internet connection, and we are downloading the necessary data. In this case, we will, from the backend, get the information about configured vouchers, which is information that doesn't change very often. So this is totally fine if we just download it once, or download it onto the tablet, onto the web app, basically in some front-end storage. So that then when our USSD API returns a 1, we can just look it up in our front-end storage. And then in the claim filing flow, we are able to show not just the 1, but we are able to show, oh, there's a voucher for ultrasound that this patient still has available. And it's worth, in this case, 1,000 Ariari. Ariari is, by the way, the currency in Madagascar. So yeah, with this, we now solved the second challenge. How do we know which vouchers the beneficiary has available? Then you might remember that there is also a third challenge. How can we deduct the patient's wallet balance? So here you can see again, when the whole claim filing flow is done and somebody hits the send button, we will send another API request to our backend via USSD. So in the beginning, similarly to what Phyllis already showed, you can see the USSD shortcode for 579 for mTOMADY. You can see 31 in this case for the API endpoint, which would be post-claim request in this case. We have, again, the phone number of the beneficiary whose claim this is for. Afterwards, you have the claim amount. So that's the total amount of the whole treatment. And then after that comes a list of vouchers that have been used for this claim. In this case, one for the ultrasound, for example. And you might remember the ultrasound, the voucher was 1,000 Ariary. The total claim amount here is 1,000 Ariary. So in the end, we now know that the beneficiary doesn't have to pay anything. So we don't need to deduct something from their wallet, but yeah, could also be different, that maybe they have to pay a little bit by themselves. Yeah, so with this, we now can make a check mark behind the challenge of how do we reduce the wallet balance of a patient. You might remember that I also said the whole claim filing process includes uploading images. We haven't used MMS for that, if you were thinking about that. But rather we have divided the whole process into 2 steps. So we still need the images, the proof images of invoices or about the treatment in order to do the whole back office process to prevent fraud and check that everything is correct here. So the 2-step process looks like this. After everything has happened via the USSD API, we know already that there's supposed to be a claim that is currently not uploaded yet, which means that we don't have the proofs yet, because the proofs will, first of all, also be stored on the front end side. And then you can see on the right side here, there's basically a dashboard for within the app where you can see which claims you have filed offline and that haven't been uploaded yet. This refers mainly to the proof pictures that still need to be uploaded. So the idea is basically that maybe every second week or something, this tablet needs to have an active internet connection. So maybe you need to travel somewhere to have an internet connection, but it's not necessary to have it every day. So we enable the people to work on a day-to-day basis, and every second week or whatever whatever a feasible time amount is, they need to go somewhere with this tablet to upload all the offline filed claims, basically. Yeah, so to summarize the tech solution that we came up with, we use USSD, which is available on the ground, to make API-like calls. You saw that we used some patterns from normal REST API calls, like responding with the 200 status code in order to know that everything was fine. We also have 404, for example, if the beneficiary's phone number couldn't be found in our system. Phyllis talked about the security mechanism that the devices who can make those API calls need to be registered within our system so that not everybody can just go ahead and make those calls. Also, by the way, if you were thinking if you can right now try it out, this USSD shortcode is only available in Madagascar. I don't know if anyone thought they can maybe use it here, but yeah, that's not possible. And we talked about that we need to encode the data. We only have limited amount of characters. So this was the whole process of the vouchers. We can't just, for example, send JSON objects over USSD. So we have to be very smart in what we're sending there. And it's overall then a 2-step process. Again, it doesn't work completely without internet in the end, because otherwise we would be back to pen and paper.
And here you can see some of our users to also get some faces to who's using this application. On the right, in the right corner, you may see something that looks a bit familiar. So there's our application running on a tablet and somebody is currently filing a claim.
You can also see here in in the upper right corner, someone from mTOMADY talking to the women, maybe in a community, and they gathered all together in order to tell them about mTOMADY and about the benefits and why they should use it, or yeah, that they should tell maybe family members who are pregnant. And yeah, so in order to use mTOMADY and get all the benefits from the maternal health program from Doctors for Madagascar. Here you can see an ultrasound. Yeah, and here you can also see someone using yeah, an older phone in order to maybe yeah, top up money on their mobile health wallet or something else, look how much balance is left on their account.
Yeah, and to conclude, we wanted to share our learnings and the things that particularly stuck out to us with you. First of all, we thought it's a very interesting offline first use case. A lot of times also a lot of the applications that I use have offline functionalities, but they seem more designed for situations where maybe you don't have data on your phone, but you have Wi-Fi at home, so you can download something at home and watch it while you're out. Or maybe you're about to go on a plane and you want to download your favorite TV show to watch on the plane. And yeah, so in these situations, a lot of times applications make functionalities available that can be made available offline. But what we found with our use case is that our application actually requires a certain level of data exchange, and we had to find a way of somehow being online while there is no internet connection. Yeah, and something that also proved to be a successful approach to us is to choose technology based on availability. Maybe in a lot of other scenarios, USSD wouldn't be a very successful way to go. I don't think that Netflix would try to send data over USSD, but for us, our application can only work in disconnected areas because we're using USSD. And this also somewhat connects to the third point already, that it's not necessarily that more advanced technology also leads to a more powerful application, because the value that we can provide through our application actually comes from us being a bit more creative with what technologies we want to use. Yeah, and with that, we would like to thank you and invite you to ask questions. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you also from my side.
Cool. Just ping your questions to the chat. There are already some who have been answered partly by Simon.
He's working for mTOMADY also.
That's what I figured out. So I don't know. I think they have been answered. If they haven't been answered, just ping into the chat again if something was unclear. What was it like debugging issues with the system?
I'm not sure I get the question fully. You mean as in to debug issues related to when you're offline?
Maybe someone can clarify that. You should also be able to actually, yeah, you could unmute yourself. Maybe wait for a bit. What debugging issues exactly meant?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just curious what kind of difficulties you run into in trying to solve bugs in a system of this nature where everything's offline and you can't really replicate the system yourself here as easily.
It's actually, maybe it's also good to share that we're also working with developers in Madagascar. So a lot of times either like, I mean, they can replicate it there as well with tablets and with smartphones, but also our colleagues in Madagascar go out to communities a lot as well to support with technical issues and when something isn't working. So I think that is also that is very important for us to make this work, because we couldn't all do it from over here. Yeah.
Somebody asked if the project is open source.
It isn't.
Okay. You mentioned choosing technologies based on availability. Are there other technologies such as USSD which can be used in disconnected areas?
I think that people, I mean, as Christine also mentioned, you could use MMS, but generally, like there's not so many technologies being used. So I think that beyond using USSD, like a lot of like the tools that you use are actually like on the ground and to work with people.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work is also actually like face to face also sometimes.
Yeah.
You need to build the trust as well. You can imagine like if you have never like using, they use mobile banking via USSD as well, via their mobile network, but also still mTOMADY, like we have to see if they can trust, like that they trust us. So they obviously don't just put money on this wallet without the trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. If something is not clear, just unmute yourself or let us know in the chat. Are there any other questions? I hope the questions that have been asked and have been answered by Simon are fine so far. Somebody asked, how do beneficiaries load funds onto their wallet?
That also works via the USSD menu that mTOMADY provides. So from there, you can actually you can hit a number to save money on your mobile health wallet, and this will redirect you basically to your mobile banking USSD menu, so to say, so that you then confirm the money, and this will transfer the money to our digital wallet, basically.
Cool. Any other questions? Somebody asked, like this was not for you, if the slides will be shared. So we share the recording after the meetup. If you RSVP'd yes to the meetup, so we do not spam other people. But as you are here, you probably RSVP'd with yes. So yes, you will get recording and the slides. How long did it take to launch the project?
I think, so with mTOMADY, like ThoughtWorks and mTOMADY have had an ongoing collaboration. And I think the first part of the project was launched in 2018. So like the offline capabilities like were worked on after that release. And I think we were working on it for a few months, maybe. Yeah.
How is the UIUX process? I don't know if you need any like further clarifications on the question.
I could interpret some things.
Okay.
I think it's in general very interesting, right? Like also doing user research. We actually had a colleague also going there to Madagascar to do some user research.
Cool.
But obviously it's very different from here, right? Like, for example, I think I have been told stories that, because I wasn't in the project then in the beginning, that maybe not everyone knows that you can scroll on a tablet, right? So like building a product that needs to be fit, like everything needs to fit on one screen, because it's then more intuitive if you don't know that you can scroll. Yeah, so in general, user research is very interesting and is very necessary, because you can't just, as Phyllis I think mentioned in the talk as well, you cannot just apply all the rules that we have here already, that we know, maybe you shouldn't do this and that, and the button needs to be here. You cannot just apply that for that context. I don't know if you have something to add, Phyllis, maybe?
No.
What are your further steps? Do you plan to introduce these wallets to other fields of health or other countries in Africa?
Yeah, there are some things in the pipeline, but also we, as we're from ThoughtWorks, I don't know if this is really our our question to answer.
Mm-hmm. So maybe Simon can answer it again.
Oh yeah, Simon, there you go.
Do you get the user's confirmed MSI-SDN from the telco for a request from the user's phone? I'm not sure.
Repeat that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I made a mistake with the letters. Do you get the user's confirmed MSI-SDN from the telco for a request from the user's phone?
So MSI-SDN is basically the phone number. That's also the term that we use in the system. So we're familiar with that term. With the USSD request, basically what you saw, what we have shown is basically the payload of the USSD request. Actually, in the end, what we get from the telecom provider is an XML that has the number of the SIM card that was sending this USSD request. So it's either the beneficiary's phone number or the tablet's SIM card's phone number from our hospitals that we have registered. So in the end, it's a whole XML that has the phone number and has somewhere in there also the payload. Mm-hmm. And there's also information in there for example, pagination. So you can also have in your USSD menu, or not pagination, but for processes that involve more steps. So you first click 1, and then you ask another question, and then you click 2, and then you click 5 to step through. So it's a protocol within XML where you get obviously a little bit more information than just the payload that we have shown.
Cool.
Does that answer the question? I'm not 100% sure.
If there are any follow-ups, let us know. Somebody asked if you could speak a bit about the prototyping process and the user testing.
So I think one thing that is also important to know about our application is that most of the processes that we've implemented, they come from like requirements and have kind of happened before already, but in a pen and paper based way. Mm-hmm. So there were vouchers before, but these would have to be recorded with pen and paper. Mm-hmm. There would be proofs, like you get a receipt when you go to the hospital. All these things happened before. So most of the features that we have, they come from the ground, where people said that, oh, actually, in order to know that we can sign up this patient, we need the images of their ID and this and this. And we also have a very quite a big team in Madagascar, and some of them are also doctors themselves, and they work very closely with hospitals as well, mm-hmm. and with other people on the ground, and go into the communities where our application is being used. So there's also a lot of the requests, especially when it comes to user testing, a lot of the we also, as Christine mentioned before, one of our colleagues went to Madagascar to do user research and user testing as well. But we also, the people we work together with in Madagascar, they go out to the communities mm-hmm. a lot as well. And that is also, I guess, our way of user testing a lot.
I think what's on top of that also interesting is that it's sometimes hard to get feedback about the app, because oftentimes people don't have a reference of how could it work, right? If they don't use any other app on their tablet, for mm-hmm. example, if they don't own a tablet, they don't know how maybe a better user flow looks like, and they don't know that maybe this button is way too small and they can't really click it because they don't know that maybe we can make it bigger, or that a process might be very slow and it could be faster. So I think a lot of the user research that our colleague has done was observing the people, how they are using the app, and then making notes for her because just asking often didn't really bring the results or the necessary insights that we needed.
Super interesting. Anything else? One last call for questions. Cool. I would say thank you so far. One last question. That was quick. That's like the last one. Can you think to leverage this USSD as a fail-safe in other projects as well?
In other projects, in disconnected areas, in that sense, or
like also like in Western countries? Yes, disconnected areas.
I mean, probably. Is the question, are we working on other projects, or?
I would assume it was a general question, and now in Western Europe as well. So just have it as a fail-safe in other projects, I assume.
Okay. So the question is, could Netflix actually use USSD?
That's how I would interpret the question. Please correct me if I'm wrong. With
Maybe
160 characters, I don't know. But I think that it's not something that you just do like this. So it's also a lot of work went into this, and it's of course a question of how much value you get out of it in another scenario, because the thing with our problem statement was that there are areas where there is never any internet connection.
And I mean, we need, probably long term, it would just be nice to bring internet over there, right? Like the world is connected via internet. It is should at some point already be treated as like necessary human right to have internet connection, kind of, right? So I think the long-term goal would also to be able to get rid of this and even provide, because the internet also gives us more, even more power and even more ability to bring nice features and services over there. Like you can see how other startups came up with video consultation, for example, from doctors, right? That would not work in Madagascar. Or in other African countries, maybe where it's very disconnected and you don't have an internet connection. It's a nice thought, maybe, but it just doesn't work everywhere right now. But it would be even better if that would work everywhere, right? So the long-term goal is also to, they have internet connection.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that. Okay.
Oh. Some German providers removed USSD services from their products.
Interesting.
Okay.
How do I get my ringtone now?
Okay. Thanks so much. That was super interesting. Thanks for answering the question, and also thanks for the questions that you asked and that everyone joined us tonight.
Especially besides the heat.
Thank you besides the heat. I don't know if you already have rain in your cities. In Munich, it's actually still very, very hot. I hope you can enjoy your evening. So thanks a lot for joining.
Thanks, everyone.